It's now 2025 and it is time to look back at 2024, and here are my top 15 films of the year. 2024 did have a bit of a slow start, but it definitely picked up in the second half of the year, and there were some awesome films that I'm excited to talk about. Starting at number 15, I have M. Night Shyamalan's Trap. I went into this film not really knowing what to expect because I've either heard people saying that they hated this film or loved this film, and I was on the side that really loved this film. From start to finish, every single twist and turn, I was just fully into it. I absolutely loved every single twist that this film took, and Josh Hartnett's performance made this film what it is. My next pick might not be a film that a lot of people are going to have in their top 15, but the next one I have is Terrifier 3. I'm not going to sit here and say that the Terrifier films are not an acquired taste. They're definitely not for everybody. They are very overly violent, but that is one thing that I love about them. I also just love the character of Art the Clown. He's such an incredible horror icon now. And I love Lauren Levera as Sienna Shaw in this film. She is one of my favorite final girls of all time, and Terrifier 3 absolutely cemented her spot as one of the best final girls of all time. God, 2024 is just a great year for horror. There's some more horror films I'm going to talk about in my top 15, and Terrifier 3 was one of the top ones of the year. And then the next spot was probably the biggest surprise for me of the year, and that was Transformers 1. I remember seeing the first marketing materials for this, the poster and the trailer, and I thought this film was going to be absolutely terrible. But man, did they blow me away. The animation actually ended up turning out really, really good. It had some really, really pretty moments. And the ending, oh my god, the ending with Megatron and Optimus Prime, all just absolutely gorgeous. It has one of the best endings of the year by far. Moving on to the 12th spot is Monkey Man. This is one of the only films from the first half of the year that is still in my top 15 today. And for good reason, because Dev Patel starring and directing in this film was absolutely off the charts. Incredible action and awesome scenes, a lot of emotion in it as well, an incredible revenge story. I'm a sucker for stories like that where an underdog really rises up to get revenge in a way that's really satisfactory. And Monkey Man was that in spades, and so was another film I'll talk about in a little bit. Right before we get into my top 10, at the 11th spot, I have Deadpool and Wolverine. Now this is another film that really wasn't for everybody. I know there's people out there that didn't really like it, but there are also people who really loved it like me, because I feel like Deadpool and Wolverine was the perfect version of what this film should have been. Comedy was great, action was great, all of the fourth wall breaking parody jokes and satire in it was all perfect. And I'm a sucker for these good cameos. Seeing Channing Tatum as Gambit is one of the best cameos I've ever seen in a film of all time. So that was just that alone is enough for it to be one of my favorite films of the year and one of my favorite MCU films of all time. And now we're getting into my top 10. And at the 10 spot, I have Saturday Night. I talk a lot in my videos about how much I love the MCU and love Star Wars and pop culture and nerdy culture in general. But I'm also just a really big comedy nerd, and I've always loved Saturday Night Live, and I don't talk about that a lot. But watching Saturday Night was just such a great nostalgia hit for me. And with it being SNL's 50th anniversary this year, it was just the perfect time for a film like this to come out. And it felt like they really captured lightning in a bottle with the setting of this film and just all the actors and everyone's performance. It was all so perfect. And at the number 9 spot, I have The Substance. The Substance does not hold back in the messaging that they're trying to convey in this film, and I think they do a very good job of it. Not only that, but it's also very well shot. It's got some very unique moments and unique kind of camera work and stuff like that. And I'm also just obsessed with the whole aesthetic of the film and the aesthetic of The Substance itself as a product. All the little details in it were so good, and I love The Substance so much. And at the number 8 spot, I have Nosferatu. I think that there's a chance that this film could go up in my ranking as time goes on, because I love Robert Eggers as a director, and he absolutely made a phenomenal film here with Nosferatu. And Bill Skarsgård's whole performance as Count Orlok was insane. He just absolutely disappeared into this character. Even his voice, you couldn't recognize the voice or anything about him. Still not the biggest fan of the mustache though. Other than that, pretty damn good horror film. And Lily Rose Depp basically gave the performance of her life. Insane performance. At number 7 now, I have Furiosa. George Miller just knows how to make an awesome looking action film, and God, this film is just so good. Not only is the action awesome, but Anya Taylor-Joy's performance is great. Chris Hemsworth was a big highlight for this film for me. It's one of my favorite villain performances of the year. I think Chris Hemsworth was incredible. And now it just makes me want to see George Miller potentially direct the next Thor movie. Come on, can we please make that happen? And just outside the top 5, at the 6th spot, I have We Live in Time, starring Andrew Garfield and Florence Pugh. This was the film that I most recently watched for the first time, and oh my god, this film just absolutely destroyed me. Not many films make me cry, but this film made me sob. Like, I've never had a film make me cry that much that wasn't Marley and Me. Like, the whole story was just absolutely beautiful. I love the time jumping and the whole story that they told, and even kind of like the ending that's almost open-ended where they don't overtly tell you what happened to Florence Pugh's character, but you can kind of understand what happened. And the delivery scene in the gas station might be one of my favorite scenes in all film. It will forever hold a very special place in my heart because I've felt a very big connection to Andrew Garfield's character in my relationship with my wife, so I'm always going to love this film. And now when I make eggs every morning, I gotta crack that egg on a flat surface while also trying to not cry uncontrollably. We are now into the top 5. At the number 5 spot, I have Wicked. It makes perfect sense that Wicked is just the cultural phenomenon that it is, and my god, I absolutely loved it. I've seen it twice in theaters and I loved every single second of both viewings. The music is phenomenal and the performances are great. Cynthia and Ariana give the performances of their lives in this film. And I have just been jamming out to Dancing Through Life in my car the last few weeks. I probably played it over 20 times. I just absolutely love these songs, especially that one. And I get chills every single time that I hear the end of Defying Gravity. Just, God, Wicked is so good. I can't wait for part 2 next year. And speaking of a sequel, next up I have Smile 2 at my number 4 spot. I definitely misspoke earlier because this is actually the biggest surprise of the year for me. If you would have told me at the beginning of this year that Smile 2 was going to be one of my favorite films of the year and my top 5 of the year, I probably would have laughed in your face. I never thought Smile 2 would have been this good. Naomi Scott, another incredible performance. Just the women in horror this year absolutely were off the charts. Naomi Scott was so incredible in her performance in this film. It also had some good jump scares. I didn't really feel like there were many cheap jump scares. Overall, God, Smile 2 was so good. And the ending, another phenomenal ending. Another one of the best endings of the year. We are now into my top 3. Each one of these films I gave a 5 out of 5 on Letterboxd. And I could flip-flop number 2 or number 3. But for number 3, I'm going to say is Challengers. I love the way this film is shot. I love the time jumping. I love the performances. For some reason, all the tennis stuff was even great. God, Challengers is just so good. I love Challengers so much. Zendaya's performance just carried so much weight. She was such an incredible antagonist in this film. Like, everything about this film was so good. I loved everything about it. And it's got even a great soundtrack, a great score to it too. It's one of my favorite at-home movie watches of all time because I didn't get a chance to see it in theaters, but it's definitely one of my favorite films I've ever watched at home. It was a great viewing experience. And at the number 2 spot is another film that is going to mean so much to me, especially one day when I become a father, and that is The Wild Robot. This film is just absolutely gorgeous. DreamWorks is out here putting out some of my favorite animated films of all time. Just a few years ago, Puss in Boots: The Last Wish became one of my favorite anime films of all time. And even this year, I watched How to Train Your Dragon for the first time. It's one of my favorite anime films of all time now as well. But The Wild Robot is so emotional. It's even got some good comedy in it and a lot of great vocal performances. And God, it's just, again, absolutely gorgeous animation. And the relationships in it between like Roz and Bright Bill and even with Fink. My God, this film is just so incredible. This is the film that almost got me. I didn't quite cry at this one, but it almost got me. And I'm going to forever cherish this film as well. I just had such an emotional connection with this film and I absolutely loved it. And my top film of 2024 has been my top film for 9 months now, and that is Dune Part 2. I recently rewatched this film and my God, it still just absolutely blows me away. Every performance from top to bottom, from Paul Atreides all the way down to like Christopher Walken as the Emperor, like everyone does so great in their roles. And obviously the bright spot in it is Austin Butler as Fade, and especially the Coliseum scene. I have said over and over again in a bunch of different videos how much I love that scene and how it's one of my favorite scenes of all time. If you don't have Dune Part 2 at least in your top 5 of the year, I think you're just simply wrong. But there you have it. There's my top 15 films of 2024. I think the only film that I didn't see that could potentially be in this top 15 is Anora. I'm still really chomping at the bit to see that film, and I'll certainly update you guys once I see it to see if it makes this list. But this has been an incredible year for film. I loved all these different films I got to watch this year. I watched about 77 films this year that were released in 2024. I'm so excited to see what we have in store in 2025 and what were some of your favorite films of 2024.